So thanks to Senator John Ossoff, the big story in the headlines the last couple of days has been Donald Trump's human binky, Natalie Harp, and all of the controversy surrounding her, something that they didn't want to be a big headline story. And by John Ossoff successfully raising the issue repeatedly, baiting Donald Trump a little bit. They've now got MAGA and the Trump regime right on the back foot. They're now forcing them to address the significant security concerns when it comes to Natalie, who is like glued to Donald Trump, glued to him. And I put a video out on this a couple of days ago. Ossoff's comments about Natalie were actually really a very, very savvy jab, right? He was able to do what other Democrats have not been able to do, which is to get Trump riled up in a way which drew attention to something that he didn't want to be talked about, right? Ossoff has gotten control of the narrative very, very quickly and has pushed something to the forefront of the headlines that the regime and Republicans don't want anybody talking about. So A plus Ossoff, fantastic politicking, fantastic maneuvering the headlines, right? To benefit all of us. But then yesterday we saw the Daily Beast release these letters from Michael Wolff, right? Who has worked with the Daily Beast. He's on their podcast all of the time, that were from Natalie Harp. And I'm not going to share those letters in this video. You can go find them on the Daily Beast website. I'm not going to read from them because I found them incredibly troubling, and I think probably triggering for a lot of people. I know that everybody's snarking on Natalie and snarking on the letter that Michael Wolff released, but reading through it, right, like if you have ever been the victim in an abusive relationship, if you've ever had to engage in some of these behaviors to survive an abusive relationship, I couldn't help but just like see all of the evidence of fawning behaviors in her descriptions. In the ways that she's over apologizing, in the ways that she's fawning, right? It is classic fawning behavior. And I think it's very, very disturbing the way that the media is trying to focus all of their energy on her, a 20-something woman having a clearly maladaptive, unhealthy, and I would argue abusive relationship with an 80-year-old man, an 80-year-old malignant narcissist, con man, convicted of 34 felonies and found liable for sexually assaulting E. Jean Carroll. Like, what's the power dynamic in all of this? Honestly, the way that the press is talking about Natalie, as Donald Trump's diaper changer, Maggie Haberman called her Donald Trump's human binky. Like, I think that there's a lot of dehumanization of her, and I did at the beginning of this video, right? I said human binky, right? Dehumanization of her and wanting to make her be the gross party in this relationship. It really reminds me of Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky. One person in that relationship is a 20-something vulnerable person, and the other one is the president of the United States with every possible measure of power. And like the relationship is so unbalanced, so unequal, it has to be coercive, right? The power dynamic is just so clear, right? Monica Lewinsky was painted in the press as as a seducer, as the one who caused Bill Clinton to fall. No, man, he took advantage of that situation. She was the victim. And I'm concerned about the way we're seeing some of the press talking about Natalie, because she's worshiping Donald Trump, right? Because she's in this relationship with him that's really messed up. And I know people want to say oh, look, Melania came out of the woodwork because they've got to put the wife front and center. But there's all this spin and play that's happening. But how much is Natalie... I don't want to say she's not, I don't, oh gosh, you guys, I'm struggling to talk about this. I'm concerned about the way that she's being framed in the press in a way that minimizes, obviously the abuser in the relationship is the man who's been found liable for sexual assault, is the man who is a known abuser, a known malignant narcissist. I know people are getting crazy views with their videos, snarking on her with all of their, vaguely misogynistic, what have you, all of the unflattering video clips and photos. And I just, guys, what are we doing? What are we doing here with that? And I guess that brings me to the other point. I'm really, really frustrated with the fact that Michael Wolff held on to those letters for how long? Over a year? So I think it was a year and a half, maybe. And he only decided to release them now when it was advantageous to him, right? And I know I've talked about this before. Why is it that these wealthy corporate journalists hold on to information for long periods of time? I will crap on Maggie Haberman every day of the week because she's put forward as like, the reporter with all the inside track on Donald Trump, when she's like a gossip columnist essentially who covered Donald Trump. And her whole career is built on Donald Trump staying in the headlines, on him staying in power. If he's rotting behind a prison cell, then she basically has no job because her whole job is covering him and having secret insider knowledge, getting interviews on all kinds of different news networks because she's got secret insider knowledge on Trump. It's the same thing with Michael Wolff, Trump's biographer. He benefits by holding on to this information until it is financially beneficial for him to release it, right? And to me, I'm like, is that even journalism? Where is the line? These guys are more interested in their book deal, making, the #1 New York Times bestseller list. So they will hold on to like really crucial information, evidence, until their book release or until there's a certain headline that will allow them to be able to sell a little tidbit of information. Like they're out for themselves. And to me, it says like this is an ongoing problem of corporate media. It's not journalism. These guys aren't journalists, or they wouldn't hold on to this significant information while democracy is crumbling. I'm not going to point out the speck in everybody else's eye when there's a plank in my own, because I have been guilty of looking at some of these experts put forward by corporate media over the last several years. Like I used to be a big Neil Katyal fan during 2020, 2021. I was like, oh, this guy is giving such good analysis. And then I looked at the kinds of corporations that he argues for. I looked at how he's charging $2,500 an hour to defend Nestle in court against children in Africa who are being exploited, right? Like, no. And he calls himself a centrist, not whatever, right? We've all been guilty of looking at the image, the like carefully curated image of all of these experts that are put forward by the mega media corporations that interview them, that platform them. I guess, maybe y'all are light years ahead of me, but I would just encourage all of us to be more critical, more circumspect when it comes to how much trust we extend to folks who are platformed on corporate media run by billionaires, whether it is the journalists themselves, the reporters themselves, who are asking DSA candidates like, so you're telling me you don't believe in Israel's right to exist, right? Like, who's funding them? Who's running them, right? Who do they work for? Where are their ethics? And likewise, all of the experts and analysts and like all of the people that they contract with to bring on and put forward, lots of attorneys and journalists like Maggie Haberman and what have you, who are they working for? Is it themselves? Is there dark money behind the scenes that they work for? What's their motivation, right? Who benefits from their messaging? They clearly benefit from Donald Trump staying in power. They have a financial incentive for him to stay in power. It gives them endless content for their book deals and their special leaking of information when somebody will pay enough for it, right? I'm concerned about the lack of journalistic integrity. I think a lot of us are when it comes to corporate media, also when it comes to the new media. A lot of people out there calling themselves journalists who are not journalists. How eager we all are to accept the folks that are platformed to us by CNN and MS. Now, Michael Cohen, right? Donald Trump's personal fixer, who is now back buddy-buddy with Donald Trump. How many members of the new media, the independent media, platformed and pushed him? And now he's just, right, same old. These guys are corrupt. They benefit from a system of corruption and self-interest. They're out for themselves, their own power, their own comfort, their own enrichment. So I don't know about you guys, but when it comes to the Natalie Harp story or any controversy, any scandal within the Trump regime, I think it's good to look at the timing. It's good to look at who's holding the cards, who's got that secret information, and what is the timing of their release of that. Have they been holding on to this stuff for a long time in a way that could have benefited all of us, and they've held it back until a moment when it benefits their bank account and benefits their career? How many people are willing to throw democracy under the bus? How many people are willing to gamble on our freedom, on our constitution, on our way of life, on our democracy for their careers? I think an awful lot of them when you look at corporate media. Not that we shouldn't be talking about Natalie Harp, not that that's not a real issue, but look at how the story is being framed. Look at who's benefiting from the way information is being disseminated, the timing and the context, and also the way that messaging is communicated.